Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hustling Sideways podcast. I'm Alan Halas. I'm a music writer.
And I'm Jim Love, and I'm a keynote and motivational speaker. And
And this is
well, hold on
okay.
1 second. I got a webcam. So I don't look like I'm in the dark. No dungeons were harmed in the making of this webcam put up. And if you
Yes.
haven't listened to this, yeah, it looked like I was in some bad situations. But now you can see me. And Alan already commented on it in this very nice way. Don't get into the episode number. Just let's recognize I have a webcam now.
I'm just very happy that you're safe, Jim. This is
Thank you.
episode 89 of the
It is.
Hustling Sideways podcast, where we talk to people about their passion projects, their side hustles, all sorts of things that entrepreneurship based business, everything that really kind of makes them happen. Jim and I also talk about what we do as well. But Jim, I'm just very happy that you have a webcam, that you look safe. For everybody that's watched on YouTube or maybe watched on Spotify or something else beforehand, you've probably seen that it did look like you were kind of held hostage for a while,
A
so
little
I'm just very
sketchy,
happy to
a
know.
little
Yeah.
sketchy, and we're good. And I also got a light that's like on top of the computer now. So even though it like may look dark in this room, moral of the story is I got real professional and fancy, and it's showing. And now I'm
Yes.
glowing. So we're
Yes.
we're set. What more? This is
Is
what
it
they
like
call.
is it like the ring light that is over the top of
No,
you
it's
or
just like this big ass like light right above
okay.
this. I don't even know what it's called, but it was like $70, and it's doing a thing. It's doing the trick, and
Okay, there you
we're good to
go.
go.
Well,
Yeah, I feel free.
you're gonna be doing makeup tutorials in no time
That's
before you
correct.
even know it.
That's the
Yeah.
next show. Yeah, that's
That's
my
the
new
next
side
one.
hustle.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you about that. Yeah.
Um, enough of our blabbering though, because we have
Fair
a
enough.
great guest. We have a great pair of guests today. Again from the Brood Ideas Challenge at the 707 Hub at Marquette University. We have Ryan and Lyndsay Nordmeyer, as well as Winnie, correct? The dog. Did I get the name wrong? I think I
That's
got the
right. You
name
got
wrong.
it.
I
That's
got it
it.
right. Um, and they are the owners of Incandescent Candle Company, and they are based out of Cedarburg, Wisconsin. So take it away, guys. How are you doing today?
Well, we're doing great. Winnie is distracted by everything that happens. We actually just moved to Cedarburg, so we're kind of still getting used to our surroundings, but nobody else more than the dog, that's for sure.
That's good. Well,
Yeah.
that's good. At least you're not also sniffing around the house just to make sure everything's all good. That would
Yeah.
Well,
that would
keep
be
in
weird
mind
too.
they're on camera. What happens off camera, we don't even know about. So go ahead
Yeah,
and
yeah,
smoke, and we'll keep it
Yeah, I'm
here
curious
for now.
about this dungeon thing. What are we talking about?
Well, here's the thing. I have a laptop, and the laptop camera isn't wonderful. So I would be doing these shows, and one time, or maybe two times, I was actually quite literally in my parents' basement,
Okay.
when I was
Yeah.
visiting for the weekend. So
Yeah.
I'd be recording, and it doesn't pick up light very well, so it would
Mhm.
look super dark, and it was really small pictures. So I looked like I was in dire need, and Alan would be like, "Blink twice if you're in trouble," and I was good. But now we got a webcam and we're set. And it only took 4 years, Ryan. It only took 4 years, and
Fantastic.
here we are.
Fantastic.
That is very true. It was a lot. It was a very long time that Jim could have been in a lot of trouble, but we
It
saw him
was.
in between, so we knew that he was alive and okay. So that's good. But enough about us. Tell us a little bit about kind of your guys' background that brought you maybe to Marquette,
Sure.
or where you kind of grew up before Incandescent Candle Company was a thing.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in the south side of Milwaukee. I fell in love with Marquette University when I was 3 years old. It's the only school I applied to. I'd never recommend that to people, but it's what I did. And it worked out. So I started at Marquette in 2017, graduated in 2022 because even back then I was a workaholic. So I had a full-time job as a sophomore and kind of took my time getting to graduate. So rather than the typical 15, I took 12, which ended up being 5 years. So I graduated in 2022. And then I started my MBA, but I'm getting ahead of myself here because I met my lovely wife here, Lyndsay, freshman year in 2018. And where are you from?
Aw,
Yeah. Where are you from?
And I'm from the Lake Geneva area, which sounds more glamorous, but I'm actually from Darien. It's just nobody knows where that is. So I say Lake Geneva because that sounds a little bit nicer. And then
sure.
I went to UWM, not Marquette, unfortunately. Sorry, not as
Yeah.
cool.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I got my degree in contemporary performance and choreography. So that is what I do.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. I have to say, lifelong Wisconsinite. Also grew up on the south side of Milwaukee. I have no idea where Darien is. So yes, please keep saying Lake
Exactly.
Geneva.
Just say Lake
But
Geneva.
you know where Lake Geneva is?
That works.
Um,
Yes.
Exactly.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you guys met in college, obviously. You said you were a workaholic even before then, but
Yeah,
I kind of got to know, like, what have you always had an entrepreneurial kind of mindset as far as like,
not
were you the
not
kid with the
particularly.
lemonade stand or anything like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So not particularly. I think, when you're growing up in a neighborhood, I think every kid has the idea to either do a lemonade stand or do a lawn mowing company or something along those lines. It's always something that I thought about, but it's never something I really chased after. But when I was in college, sophomore year, I finally declared my major in criminology and law studies. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be in the FBI. At that point, Lindsay and I had been together for a year and a half, and we knew things were going to get steady soon. Cut to us getting married later on, about my first senior year, I guess you could say, as a fifth year senior. I knew that I just kind of wanted to start providing, and I knew that I would need to get a full-time job early on so I could be ahead of my fellow graduates by the time that happened. So I'd already have two years of professional experience under my belt.
Sure.
And I was able to make it work. So being a criminology major, I ended up working for Allied Universal on the contract with Johnson Controls and their Global Security Operations Center, which was just basically kind of sitting in a room, after hours, late at night, monitoring the world for any kind of crazy event that could potentially impact the company in some way. So that's kind of how I started my journey. I would pull 12-hour days there and go to school the next day, and it was a trip, but it was worth it, getting that professional experience in an actual corporate place. So that's kind of what I meant by workaholic, because there were weeks where it was 60 hours plus full-time school. But that really kind of fueled me to get prepared for the MBA that I find myself finishing up here now,
Mhm.
to kind of push myself to go beyond that. And the story of going from criminology to business is even more interesting, but we'll get there.
Yeah, well, and I'm
Sure.
curious, Ryan, is that a background of your family to work that much? I mean, it's irregular. So I'm curious,
Yeah, yeah.
what made you go that route?
Well, so I come from a pretty traditional family.
Mhm.
The men in my family have historically worked very, very hard. My dad is an incredibly hard worker, and I think I got a lot of those traits from him. When Lindsay and I met and we got really steady and we knew that things were going to go, we had a real future together. Like I said, I just realized that if I wanted to be ahead, if I wanted to be able to provide for our family down the line,
Mhm.
it would be really helpful for me to get that experience even then as a sophomore. So
Yeah.
having
Sure.
that kind of that mind's eye and that big picture point of view, seeing 20 steps down the road, 5 years from that point, where am I going to be? And there are days I look back on that today, at 25 years old, where I'm like, that was a really good idea.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsay, how about you? Was there ever any kind of inkling of like, I knew I wanted to start a business, I wanted to run my own thing,
I'm
or
probably the opposite as he is. So there was
okay.
nothing in my mind like, yeah, we could do a business. I was always the, oh, well, there's so many negatives to it. There's so
Right.
many scary parts to it. And, being high risk with starting a family and everything too. It's like, how do you take that jump? I was also a workaholic. I think we both had like 3 or 4 maybe jobs in college. It was just insane. So
Yep.
that aspect I understand, but as far as like starting a business, I was probably more in his head about not doing it
Yeah,
than
yeah,
that.
definitely. I made the switch to going from criminology to getting an MBA, I think the second semester of my final, my final
Wow.
year at Marquette. I was
Yeah.
like, there's more in store for me. There's more in store for my education. I'm not done here yet. I applied for it. Somehow I got in. And originally I wanted to go into finance, because at the time then I was working at Baird and as a private wealth management compliance analyst. And I was like, well, if I'm going to be policing these financial advisors, I might as well become one. So I ended up getting the MBA and wanting to go for finance, but I fell in love with marketing. And as I got really deep into that marketing book, I realized that that book had so much in store for business in general. And I was
Mhm.
like, I'm getting this business degree. There's gotta be so much I can do with it. What can I do with this? And then I realized I have all these ideas. I really like working with people. What is this leading me to? Where am I going with this?
Sure.
And I started to develop this natural affinity for, you know, building my own thing and going from there. You know, I've been working for other people for so long, as wonderful and as glamorous as that can be. You know, there's not a lot of growth and money in that, right? Not for forever. So I think that one of the things I looked at is, you know, if I want to be truly happy, I need to be able to meet all my marks in my career. And the best way for me to do that is to just build it from the ground up, do it myself, and pass it on to the kids, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a feeling that I know where this is going, as far as the origin of candle making and where this came in. But at what point did you guys kind of land on candle making?
Sure.
And where, you know, when did this kind of all start?
Yeah. What you want to start with this one?
I feel like if you were to start a business, it was probably me saying, well, it had to be something that I like
Yeah,
too.
yeah, pretty much.
Probably, that was probably the start of
Definitely.
it. I think we like talked about so many different ideas, which you still have so many different thoughts about, you know, different directions for businesses, but just starting to establish some sort of LLC was important for us just to start somewhere. So I think the idea of, okay, well, what's a really good marketing or thing that people really enjoy out there? And I think the one that I saw the most, or at least I can relate the most to as a female, would be candles.
Yeah,
Sure.
My mind is always pinging with new ideas constantly. Like, I have this very broad plan of all these businesses that I want to start. And what it really starts with is a good idea that people can be interested in. And I saw that as something, you know, it's got to be something that has higher margin. It's got to be something that really sparks creativity. It's got to be something that really speaks to who our customers are and what they want to do, and something that isn't really not a known thing, but something that isn't really something that people think about all the time. You know what I mean? There are companies out there that have a similar business plan, but where we go about it differently is we want to be mobile. We want to be on the road. And that's something that other companies struggle with, because they need a place to sit down. They need a way to plug in their hot wax warmer, right? They need a way, they need a home location. And as someone who wants to start a business for the first time, you look at loans and you look, especially where we're at in Cedarburg, like you can't just, the rent here is crazy. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
you know, being able to have a building is something that's so daunting. I mean, how can you start a business in a place like this from the ground up? And we were like, I think the best way to do this is just put it on the road, and no one's ever done that. So how do we go about doing that? And that's really the challenge and what makes Incandescent different, you know?
Yeah,
There goes my
absolutely.
dog,
I was
sorry.
gonna say, no, that's all right. I was gonna say that I was gonna guess that landing on candles was possibly a COVID lockdown project that
Yeah.
had kind of evolved out of there as kind of a hobby, and then, you know, something clicked, and you
Yeah.
said, hey, this could become something.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So was being crafty either of your guys' forte at first,
That's
or
where Lyndsay
design
comes
or
in.
anything?
I was gonna say
Yep.
that's probably more my expertise from being the dance teacher and choreographer and all that stuff. I think for as far as like candles go too, what was so important to me is during COVID, we started more of a health journey. Just because if you're at home all day, it's, you know, that habit of like wanting to like snack and eat. That's where that COVID, what was it, COVID 15, 16, COVID 15, whatever.
COVID 30.
You know, I was like, well, if we're going to be, you know, at home every single day, you know, I want to start at least making some lifestyle changes. So we started, you know, slightly and slowly switching to like organic foods and whole foods, which now we pretty much have completely in our diet. We don't have anything with food coloring or high fructose corn syrup or anything that's just kind of not meant for the body. So when that came into the business, it was also important, since so many candles have, you know, all of those just
parabens and
terrible
paraffin
ingredients
wax and
that, you know, if you have children at home or even just for yourselves, you don't want to be burning all the time, because it's not the best thing. So I think when we were deciding to start a business, it was something that, you know, some places might not offer, which is just that more natural alternative to what, you know, you find in like Yankee Candle.
Right.
So what goes into the genesis of actually starting this product? So like, if you have this in mind of maybe the direction you want to go, who do you start reaching out to? You know, what conversations you start having that really form what it could look like, smell like, feel like, those types of things.
Definitely. I mean, it really starts first with partnerships. And kind of getting engaged with the community. I've always had these thoughts. The best way to start it is just to kind of get engaged with local schools, churches, get yourself out there to kind of be, you know, someone that can show up to a wedding, right? And then your gift to all your guests are candles that they made themselves. So just getting more involved in the community, getting our name out there, and helping people see what we do. I think the nearest the nearest establishment that has the basic same idea, but it's actually in a building is Milwaukee. And then beyond that, it's like Geneva. There's not really a lot of other places that do this sort of thing. And to make it, to put it on wheels and to let it kind of come to you and be something that you want, that's kind of, like I said, that's kind of what makes us different. So the best way to get that ball rolling is just to get out there and get in the community and go from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I also thought Darien was high on the list for this too. Not just
Yeah, if you want some like farm smelling candles,
Yeah.
then yeah. Oh.
Some wheat.
There's your,
Hey,
your
that might be
livestock
a
scented candle.
market we don't even know about.
Fresh
Manure.
air, right?
Yeah. That
Right,
sounds like
right.
that farmer Tinder app. What is that, like Farmer Meet Farmer
Farmers
or something?
only.
Farmers
Yeah,
only.
farmers
Yeah.
only.
Yeah, that is
I
not
could
how
see
we
that
met,
one,
by the
man.
way. That is
Yeah.
not how we met.
Very good to important to
yeah.
know, but honestly, hey, maybe there's something there. You
Yeah.
can partner up with them,
Exactly.
and your first date can
Exactly.
be
And I've had
mobile
other
candle
ideas to partner. I mean, you can partner with towns, you know, like what does Grafton smell like? What does when you think of Cedarburg, what does Cedarburg smell like? And then, you know, you're engaging with like city leadership or municipal leadership at that point. And then you're getting photos, and it's a way to really kind of blossom from there.
Yeah.
You know, I've had serving gigs in the past too, where I go to them and they're like, you know, we could totally see burning your candles. And now we've got, okay, this is what Zarletti Mequon smells like. You know what I mean? And this is, and here's that company where we got this candle from. And you kind of just going from there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now, where does the 707 hub fit into this? So
Yeah.
how did you go? You know, did you start there and get some ideas, or how does that, the collaboration in that
I don't
space
even think
work?
I know this question.
No, this is so I met Patrick at the 707 hub because I had a totally different idea. So Incandescent was not my first entrepreneurial thought. I remember when my first entrepreneurial thought came into play. And it was when I was, you know, working somewhere else, doing my own thing. And I was like, man, what would be a really cool thing? And then it just kind of blossomed. So I went to Marquette, and I was like, it was an idea that really focused on college students and the way they socialize with one another. And I was like, well, what better place to go to than where I go right now? So I go to Marquette and I start looking people up, and I start finding people, because I know that there's this drive and this need for, you know, this people that want to get ideas from students and you know, help them come to light. And I knew 707 Hub existed. So I started looking up 707 Hub's website and just contacting people and learning and meeting new people and kind of pitching the idea. I pitched the idea to professors, and everyone said, have you talked to 707? And I was like, yep, waiting to hear back from them. I finally did. I got to sit down with Patrick for a little while, and you know, life happened, things got in the way a little bit. And it was one of those things where if I'm trying to start, it was a social media company, right? I have no IT background whatsoever. And I knew that going to 707 would be a great bridge and help me find that partnership that I needed. But it was such a baby idea. It was such a half-baked thought that it was like, there's so much more that needs to go into this. So that's how I got involved with 707 Hub in the first place. And like I said, as time went on, you know, other things happened, school got in the way. And it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I can do that eventually. I can still see that happening. But what's something that's more doable for just, you know, myself and Lyndsay right now? What can we do on our own to really kind of build a business, build a book, and then potentially invest in a larger idea like this later?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where Incandescent kind of came from.
Okay.
It had to be something that Lyndsay and I could partner on really well. You know, Lyndsay being the quintessential customer, and wanting to representing our customer base, is a great way to get to know who you're marketing to, right? So that was a really big perk that we had there. But yeah, it all started with 707, and it all started with that small idea that I had, you know, at work.
For sure. So to kind of give people too a little bit of background about Incandescent, it's very experience based. It's not just you're not making candles for people. It's
Yep.
giving people the experience of being able to go out
Yep.
and make candles on their own, whether that be at an event or at a farmer's market or wherever. But tell us a little bit about kind of those first kind of runs at it and trying to get this going off the ground. What kind of hurdles did you run into? Maybe like the first time you set up for an event or set up for anything?
Yeah. Definitely trying to figure out how a Cricut works was my first hurdle. Trying to get it, because we want to have, we want to have the marketing side. Like that's what I'm specializing in. I'm specializing in the marketing. I want it to be incandescent, right? Like it's not going to be incandescent. It was just a glass jar. So we started with a candle making kit. And I'll kind of go into my pitch a little bit here and how we did that. Because that's where everything kind of started and how I wanted to show what the product would look like. So we got a candle making kit and we saw how it would actually work and we tested it and we realized this is actually fun for Lyndsay and I to do. And we've done this a couple of times at other places and it's still fun for us. You know what I mean? So like you said, it's very experience based. And the beauty of it is it's a usable product. So once you're done using it, you come back and you make another candle and you make it smell however you want it to smell. But anyway, back to the hurdles. Trying to, get our name on there. And as funny as that may sound, just trying to make it all meticulous and make everything look good, was the first thing we ran into. That's kind of, I think a lot of businesses run into that. How do you make yourself individual? How do you really make yourself stand out? And that's definitely been a challenge. But the beauty of the 707 Hub is that they really give you all the tools that you need. We were coached by so many people, everybody from marketing to legal. And the legal was really what I was interested in. Like, how do I make sure that no one else has this idea? How do I make sure, what do I need to put by my logo to make sure nobody takes it? And that's the beauty of 707 is that they give you all those tools. And even if you don't get that far in the competition, just to walk away with that kind of education, it was absolutely priceless.
Yeah, absolutely. And valuable stuff. I mean, I can tell just by talking to you guys, you've got the brain for marketing, right? Like, and you also said, I'm thinking of a million things every day. That is me. I'm totally in that mindset of like, I have 5 business ideas right now that I'm like, I can't go with any of them because I have no time for any of them.
I get it.
Yeah, exactly. So I totally understand that part of it and growing and building it. I know also that those first stages, maybe you take events that are a little ambitious or you're not really sure, what that initial setup's going to be. I think about the first time that I freelanced and shot weddings, that I shot it on some cameras that were nowhere near as good as the camera that I'm using right now, and just kind of had to make it happen. So what were some of those first events? And like, oh, actually, logistically, how do you get like your wax warmers and stuff? You said without having to plug things in and warm them up. Are you running them off the car? Like, how is this working?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, we're still kind of in that stage right now of planning everything. We're looking at getting everything really started in the next season. So the next Strawberry Fest, the next Fall and Harvest Festival, the next Winter Fest. We're trying to focus a lot on Cedarburg first. There's this semblance of up here of local companies. We love our local companies up here. And that's where we want to start. So how we're going to do that? One of my jobs was working for Milwaukee Tool when I was starting my MBA. And they have so many innovative products that allow you to run things, like wax warmers without any gas or anything like that. I think, as Lyndsay kind of alluded to, what makes Incandescent different from other companies is we really try to focus on the health things. We really try to focus on the environment, and it's more than just what we put in our bodies. It's the environment around us, and we need to make sure we're reflecting that in the company as well. What's the environment look like around Incandescent in our area? We love this area. How can we make sure we're keeping it safe, right? So. Yeah, sure. It might be easier and cheaper to run a wax warmer off of an engine, of a power generator like that, of a gas generator. But that's a lot of noise pollution. That's a lot of pollution, air pollution. So trying to do that, a great way to do it is just to run it off of batteries. And a great way to do that is with the M18 power tool system. So,
quick plug for
That's what keeps us mobile. But
Okay.
again, it's one of those things where we're always thinking about it's more hurdles to kind of come across, but that's what makes being an entrepreneur so much fun.
It does.
Sure. That's also our quick plug for our new sponsor, Milwaukee Tool. Absolutely.
I got you.
In a given event kind of setup or in the things that you've done already, what's the kind of roles for you guys? Is Lyndsay the face of this and talking to people? It sounds like
Well,
maybe
she's
Ryan,
definitely
you're
the
out there
better
talking to
looking
people.
face, that's for sure. That's definitely.
So have you guys figured out though, like how to work off of one another, like who's best at what situation, or what kind of aspects of running an event?
Yeah, I'd say Ryan is much more of a salesperson. So he's way better at getting people to like purchase and be involved. And once they actually, want to be involved, I feel like it's easier for me to step in and just kind of have them experience the stuff that's
Sure.
going on.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more personable and just easier that way. But we're so great at knowing like our strengths and weaknesses. So if something's not going right, he bounces off or I bounce off, and it just works out for each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that. We've talked about this before, actually, in the last interview we just had, in the 707 Hub of all places, but, finding a business partner that works. And I know you, obviously, yours is sort of built in here, but it, sometimes it may not work, like when you disagree on something, but I think it's so critical to be self-aware of, what your strengths are, and then whoever you're working with, what works for them, because that could go off the rails quickly if you're not totally transparent, aligned, willing to be accountable. And we've talked about this before, where folks have had business partner that really didn't go well, and that was a lesson learned. So I think it's funny because obviously you're married and it works, but it's a really important takeaway for folks, is that you have to be real about what you're best at, and putting yourself in situations where you're going to shine and the other person to shine, and support each other. That's a big part too. Like one day you're going to have a rough one. Like it's gonna, like maybe the sales didn't go as well as you thought, but to not blame each other, to not, it's like you just have to do it together. It's a team, and what you're good at, and you sort of ride together, if you will. So I know we've had over the last couple of years, a couple of folks that have, just this didn't go well for this reason, or we just had differing mindsets and whatever that may be. But I think it's really important especially in the early days, of this, and as you're really getting ready, is kind of for that next step, is to be very much in lockstep as you're moving along, which sounds like so corporate, but it's true.
Definitely.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think an example of that was one of the first things Lyndsay and I ran into was just a pricing strategy. I'm the business focused kind of guy who's like, we need to charge this much because I've done the math, and this is what this costs, and this is what we need to have what we need to make for profit to be liable, right? And Lyndsay is like, okay, well, me representing the customer, this is what I would pay. And it's kind of like, okay, now we're butting heads a little bit. What can we do to make this work? So that's a perfect example of that kind of thing. It's not business ending arguments, but it's definitely it's the arguments that are necessary to happen to have a business,
No doubt.
Yeah, and it's great that you've got both sides of the conversation kind of represented there, right? Like Lyndsay saying, okay, what would I actually pay for this? And you might be thinking, well, of course you could get this for this and make X amount for it. But her being like, okay, well, this is the reality of like what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's great that you can counterbalance each other like that, for sure.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, you're in the planning phases of things right now for next year. What kind of research does that end up being like, where you kind of see yourself taking things for next year?
Yeah. I think step one is just we've established ourselves as the LLC. So that is official. That's very helpful. It's very needed. I think from there we need to go and engage with a bank, and try to do something local, engage with local people. It's another great way to do things to get more community engagement. But other than that, research wise, just getting connected with the Cedarburg Chamber of Commerce, establishing ourselves here, and then getting involved in various festivals, and a lot of that just takes looking into what do I need to get involved here, and how can I be successful? Where should I put myself on the street? What's a heavily trafficked area? As residents, we know those spots, so we've already been doing a little bit of that research, but also what kinds of events go on around us? What are other people in the area charging for a similar sort of thing? What would people pay for this sort of thing? So a lot of market research, a lot of community research, and figuring out who to partner with. So that's very much where we're at right now in that process. You know, the next Strawberry Fest is in June, right? But you can never start planning too soon. So
Yeah. Is it also just a little side thing? Isn't that a wild feeling once you first have that little document that says that you own an LLC, like you
Mhm.
own a business, like it's real now?
Yes, yes. And that was a goal that I had. I remember when I first started the MBA, I was in some sort of like orientation or something. I was some, you know, nice to meet you people at the grad school, you know, organization event. And they had asked, what are your goals that you want to achieve in your grad degree? And I was like, well, hi, I'm Ryan. I'm working on an MBA, yada, yada, yada. Going great so far. One of my goals is to start a business before I graduate. And this was that business, and
Yeah.
that means something to me. It's not something that I want to. It's not a goal that I just did to say, hey, I've reached my goal. Now it's how do I follow through? How do I build off of that?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
really
I totally remember like uh the first time I was like by my parents' house after I had already like established the LLC. And I was like, look, I'm legally a state business, like according to the state of Wisconsin, I'm a business owner. And of
yep.
course there's like in my head I have that stereotype of like, well, it must be an old man that is like, you know, well to do and whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, no, I own a business. Like
What
it
really
just feels cool. Yeah.
Yeah, what really set it off to me was when we first established and we got the papers back, like you're approved, all good to go. We got a letter from a politician, a local politician, and it was addressed to Incandescent Candle Company, talking about
Oh my
the
God.
ways that they support local small businesses. And I'm like, I don't care who you are, this is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Once you start getting mail that has like your LLC on there, you're
right,
like, oh, how did
right,
they find me?
right.
Now,
Yeah.
I know we've talked a little bit about the word success, and I think it's subjective oftentimes. And I'm curious how you both will define the term success for this company. What will that look like for you in a year or 2 years? How do you want that to, what's your vision of success?
I just, you know, okay. In the competition, we didn't win, right? And that's totally okay. And I felt successful being there because I made it there, first of all.
Yeah, no
I
doubt.
learned so much from that experience, from meeting all these people, from, you know, I think his name's Omar, the guy
Yeah.
that owns Third Street Market Hall.
Mhm.
Just
Yep.
getting to sit down and just talk to him, partnering with a mentor that works at Brady, you know, and he was the you know, very high up in the legal area, in the legal department at Brady Company. Just those experiences. I mean, the experience you get in life of just living it is huge to me. So down the road, you know, if Incandescent is one of those things that, you know, starts things for us, but maybe doesn't make it all the way through, the
Mhm.
experiences we get from that's what true success is. Being happy, getting to work with my wife. I mean, these are all things that make me happy, that I hope make her happy, right? So getting to walk away and realize that we did something, we impacted somebody, and we learned something from it. That's what true success is to me. Now, of course, there's also the financial success, right? And if that's what Incandescent brings us, then that's great. But I already at this point, you know, even in the planning stage, I feel like we have achieved something. And that's what really keeps me going every day. You know, what can I achieve today? And what does that success look like? It's just, you know, walking away and knowing that something happened. Something happened.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Positive, negative,
absolutely.
something happened. I'm
I
here.
love it. It's
Yeah.
you got to appreciate the journey, and that's where you
Exactly.
learn from. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I think people oftentimes like have the glory in their head, you know, and that doesn't always happen for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's just you gotta, if you take something away and can apply it anywhere, or you
Yeah.
affected someone, that's fun, and you know, to your point, it's part of the process. So
Yeah.
appreciate it.
When I went back to my parents and was like, oh, we didn't really do that well in the competition, they were like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I was like, no, it's all good. It's genuinely, it's all good. We're you know, we're
For
gonna
what
keep.
it's worth, I think you did a great
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. So if people want to get a little bit more in touch with an incandescent company, yeah, I can't say it, Incandescent Candle Company, where would be the best place to go and find you guys or follow you guys so that they can kind of follow your
Sure.
journey a little bit?
Yeah. So we're still working on finishing up a website right now, just getting those final touches in there. But you know, we've also been working on business cards and other ways. We have email, all that stuff. We are also on Instagram. It is at Incandescent Candle Co, which is a great way to get in touch with us as well. So always just swipe up on those stories. I'll reply. So
There we
yeah.
go. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Always great to have a husband and wife duo that are working on their side hustle and getting things going. Really like to see the growth of what you guys are doing based on, what we saw at the 707 hub. And we're excited for the future for you guys. It's going to be
Thank
awesome.
you.
Absolutely.
I would love to be in touch with you guys in the future too, when things really
Yeah.
take off, and just kind of, follow up again and talk about the journey and see where we're at, and hopefully give you guys a candle in person, right?
Yeah.
Hey, there we go. All right.
Now you're a recurring guest.
My wife would absolutely love having it. Yeah. My wife would absolutely love getting a candle from you guys. So that'd be great. Well, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. We are the Hustling Sideways podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You could find us as well. We are on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we are on Instagram, TikTok, all of those places as well. I think I said Twitter. I don't remember if I did. I don't remember what it is.
You're good.
We're there. So follow us there as well. If you want to be a guest on this podcast, you can also do that. You can shoot us an email at hustlingsideways@gmail.com. And Jim,
Keep on hustling.
we'll see you next week.
Peace.